Monroe's voice cracked as he tried to calm his 5-year-old son in the middle of aisle 7 of the grocery store. Dylan, buddy, I know you want the dinosaur cereal, but we're getting the one with the tiger this time, okay? Please work with me here. Dylan's bottom lip trembled as he clutched the brightly colored box against his chest like it was life or death. But the dinosaur one makes green milk. Derek sighed, running a hand through his overgrown hair. His shirt had formula stains from the morning, and his sneakers squeaked with every step. He looked every bit the exhausted single dad he was. I'll make the milk green. I'll buy food coloring. Deal? Dylan squinted up at him like a mini negotiator. And I get 2 bedtime stories tonight. You drive a hard bargain, Derek said, grabbing the cereal box.
Deal.
Excuse me, came a smooth voice behind him. I think your son just won that round. Derek turned and nearly dropped the cereal. The woman standing there was stunning.
Polished. Tall.
Her long, dark hair framed a confident face with sharp cheekbones and warm brown eyes that sparkled with amusement. She wore a sleek black coat over a cream blouse and heels that did not belong in a grocery store. Definitely not in this neighborhood. Oh, yeah, Derek said, awkwardly tucking the box under his arm. He's undefeated, actually. She smiled. I'm sorry for eavesdropping. I couldn't help it. You're really good with him. Dylan peeked from behind Derek's leg. My dad makes the best pancakes. I bet he does. She crouched slightly to Dylan's level. What's your name? I'm Dylan, he said proudly. I'm 5 3/4. She laughed. That's practically 6.
I'm Lila.
Derek shifted, sensing the conversation was going longer than it should. Nice to meet you, Lila.
I'm Derek.
She stood back up, her eyes flicking to the frayed strap of his diaper bag, the worn sneakers, the tired eyes. You wouldn't happen to know of any good babysitters, would you? Derek blinked. Babysitters? I'm looking for someone part-time. Just a few afternoons a week. I'm new in town, and work keeps me too busy to look properly. Oh, Derek said, caught off guard. Yeah, actually. I've got a list I made a while ago when I was looking for help with Dylan. Background checks, CPR certified, all that stuff. I can give it to you. Lila's eyebrows lifted. Seriously? He pulled out a folded sheet of paper from his back pocket, a little worn at the edges. There's a few names on here. I've used a couple of them before, when I was working double shifts. They're solid. She took it delicately, like it was more than just a list of names. Thank you. That's really kind of you. He shrugged. Single dad life. You learn to survive. She tilted her head. You're doing more than surviving. Dylan tugged on Derek's hand. Dad, can we go now? Yeah, kiddo. Let's get that green milk. Lila watched them head toward checkout. She didn't move for a moment, staring at the list in her hands. She hadn't told him her last name, or that she wasn't just busy with work. She was Lila Easton, CEO of Easton Enterprises, a billion-dollar company, and she hadn't smiled this much in months. The next time Lila saw Derek, it was at a park 3 days later. He was pushing Dylan on the swing, laughing when the kid yelled, higher, and pretending to be terrified when the swing soared over his head. She stood near the bench, holding a coffee in her hand, debating if she should say something or leave them alone. Derek spotted her and waved. Hey, Lila, right? She walked over, smiling.
Hey.
I took your advice. I called one of the names on the list.
Kayla.
She's amazing. Told you she was great. Dylan slowed his swing and pointed. Is that the pretty lady from the store? Derek flushed. Dylan. It's okay, Lila laughed. I'll take it as a compliment. Dylan hopped off the swing and ran to the sandbox. Derek motioned to the bench. Wanna sit? She hesitated for a second, then joined him. So, he said, sipping a cheap coffee. What brings someone like you grocery shopping in this part of town? Lila shrugged. I wanted to be somewhere normal. Somewhere I didn't have to pretend. He looked at her. Pretend. She waved it off. Never mind. It's just been a long year. Work's been intense. You a lawyer? She snorted. God, no. Doctor? Nope. Okay, now I'm curious. What do you do? I run a company. Derek nodded slowly.
Cool.
What kind? Tech. She didn't elaborate and he didn't push. Sounds fancy. It's exhausting. He watched as Dylan piled sand into a plastic bucket.
Yeah.
Exhausting sounds about right. You're doing this all alone?
Yeah.
His mom left when he was 2. Said she wasn't cut out for it. No family nearby. So it's just me and him. Lila looked at him, really looked. The tired eyes, the calloused hands, the way he always kept one eye on Dylan. He's lucky to have you. Derek didn't answer right away. Some days I feel like I'm barely holding it together. She touched his forearm lightly. You are. And you're doing better than you think. They sat in silence for a minute. Then Lila said, I don't usually do this, but would you and Dylan want to come to dinner sometime? My place. I make a mean lasagna. He blinked. I mean.
Yeah.
Sure. If you're serious. I wouldn't have asked if I wasn't. And just like that, something shifted. Something quiet, but powerful. Lila's penthouse was nothing like Derek expected. Marble floors. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A skyline view. Dylan's eyes went wide and he whispered, Dad, are we in a castle? Lila laughed as she stepped out of the kitchen in soft jeans and a sweater. Close enough. You guys hungry? Starving, Derek said, trying not to feel completely out of place. Dinner was warm, filled with laughter and second helpings. She had a toy basket waiting for Dylan. Real toys, not the random hotel lobby ones. After Dylan fell asleep on her couch, curled up with a blanket and a stuffed bear she'd bought that day, Derek turned to her. You didn't have to do all this. I wanted to. I don't get it, he said honestly. You're all this. And I'm just, you're kind, she cut in. You're a good dad. You didn't even try to impress me. You just gave me a babysitter list. He laughed. That's my idea of flirting, apparently. She moved closer. It worked. His breath caught. Lila. I like you, Derek. He looked at her, really looked. I like you too. A lot. And then she kissed him.
Soft.
Sure.
Real.
And everything changed. Derek adjusted the strap of Dylan's backpack as they waited outside the towering glass building. The doorman had already given him 2 curious glances, and Derek was beginning to wonder if showing up here was a mistake. But Lila had insisted her assistant had even called to invite them to Easton Enterprises Family Day, and Dylan had been bouncing off the walls since. He tugged at the collar of his only dress shirt, the one he usually saved for interviews. Dylan stood beside him, holding a paper towel-wrapped muffin like a prized possession, his little tie half tucked into his vest. Dad, Dylan whispered, barely able to contain his excitement. Do you think there's going to be bouncy castles? I don't know, bud, Derek said, giving a half laugh. Maybe just a tour of the office. Some coloring books. The massive doors opened, and a woman in a navy pantsuit stepped out. Mr. Monroe? I'm Tessa, Ms. Easton's executive assistant. She's waiting for you upstairs. Derek nodded, guiding Dylan forward. Thanks. This place is really shiny. Tessa chuckled. It tends to be. Elevators this way. Inside, Dylan pressed every button before Derek could stop him, and Tessa laughed again. Don't worry. We'll only stop on the top floor. The ride up was too fast for Derek to prepare himself. When the door slid open, he was met with a sleek, expansive office space filled with glass walls, modern art, and a panoramic view of the city skyline. The contrast from his apartment's peeling walls and second-hand furniture hit him like a cold wind. Lila stood beside the floor-to-ceiling windows, speaking softly to a man in a charcoal suit. She turned at the sound of the elevator, and her face lit up. Derek froze. She looked different here. At home, she was warm, approachable. But here she was commanding. Her posture, her voice, the way people cleared paths when she walked, it was like watching a different version of her. An untouchable one. "Hi," she said, walking over with her heels clicking softly against the polished floors. "I'm glad you came." Dylan ran to her, without hesitation. "You work in a spaceship." Lila laughed, kneeling to hug him. "Almost." "Come on, I've got something to show you." As she led Dylan toward a side room filled with oversized bean bags and a fully stocked toy station, Derek watched her with a strange mix of awe and uncertainty. Tessa leaned closer. "She doesn't invite anyone up here. Ever." Derek blinked. "Really? She's not exactly known for being casual." When Lila returned, she gestured toward a private conference room. "Come talk to me for a second?" Derek followed her inside, trying not to notice the way the table looked like it belonged in a luxury showroom. She closed the door behind them. "I hope this wasn't too overwhelming," she said, motioning for him to sit. He didn't. "So, this is what you meant when you said you run a company." She gave a quiet laugh. "I figured it'd be easier to show you than explain it." "I didn't expect this," he admitted. This whole place, it's like something out of a movie." "I should have told you sooner," she said. "I didn't mean to keep it from you. I just liked being someone else when I met you. Someone who didn't have to talk about meetings, board votes, or press releases." He looked at her, really looked, and saw the vulnerability beneath her polished exterior. "You don't owe me an explanation," he said. "But I'm not gonna lie. This is a lot." "I know," she said quietly. "But I didn't bring you here to impress you. I brought you here because I wanted you to see who I really am. All of it." He crossed his arms. "Why?" "Because I want to keep seeing you. And I didn't want to do that with half-truths between us." He studied her. "Are you used to people pretending around you?" "All the time." "Well, I'm not good at that." She smiled. "That's what I like about you." He hesitated. "I'm not sure I fit into your world."
"You don't have to," she said.
"I like our world just fine. The one with serial negotiations and pancake bribes." He let out a slow breath, and something eased in his shoulders. "Okay, then let's see where this goes." When they stepped back into the main office, Dylan was wearing oversized green headphones and spinning in a leather chair while an intern read him a picture book. Lila leaned in. "I think he's running the office now." "He does have leadership potential," Derek said. "Negotiation skills, too." She laughed. Later that evening, as Derek packed Dylan's things and prepared to head home, Lila handed him a small envelope. "What's this?" he asked. "I know you're between jobs," she said. "My company's expanding its community outreach team. There's a position I think you'd be perfect for." He stared at the envelope, then at her. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a chance," she corrected. "One you've more than earned. But it's entirely up to you." He didn't open the envelope right away. Instead, he looked at her for a long moment. "You're full of surprises. I hope that's a good thing." He tucked the envelope into his pocket. "We'll see." She walked them to the elevators, her hand brushing lightly against his before he stepped inside. As the doors began to close, Dylan waved enthusiastically. "Bye, spaceship lady." Lila waved back. "Bye, future CEO." And as the elevator descended, Derek stood in silence, staring at the envelope in his hand. Everything had changed. And he wasn't sure if he was ready for it. But he wanted to be. The rain started just as Derek stepped off the bus with Dylan half asleep on his shoulder and a paper bag full of leftover pasta balanced in his free hand. The drops fell fast, soaking through the seams of his jacket and sticking Dylan's hair to his forehead. The boy stirred, mumbled something about rocket ships, and curled in tighter. By the time Derek reached their apartment building, his shoes were soaked through. He climbed the stairs in the flickering light of the hallway, careful not to jostle Dylan too much. At their door, he shifted his son gently and unlocked it. The apartment was dim, quiet. He laid Dylan on the couch, covered him with his favorite blanket, and set the food on the counter. Then he stood there for a moment, dripping on the tile and staring at the envelope Lila had given him, now slightly wrinkled from the ride. He hadn't opened it yet. Not because he didn't want to, because he wasn't sure what it meant if he did. He took a breath, peeled the flap open, and pulled out a single sheet of thick, cream-colored paper. It wasn't a job offer. At least not in the traditional sense. It was a formal letter from Easton Enterprises' Outreach Division, inviting him to apply for a role as a community partnership coordinator, something that involved working with local schools, organizing youth events, and managing early childhood resource programs. There was a handwritten note at the bottom. "I think you'd be amazing at this. But only if it feels right to you." Elhi stared at it for a long time before folding it again. He didn't have an answer yet, but he knew he was closer to one than he'd ever been. The next morning, he dropped Dylan off with Kayla, ruffled his son's hair, and told him he'd be back before dinner. He didn't say where he was going. He hadn't called Lila, hadn't messaged her either. But something tugged at him, some instinct he didn't fully understand. He found himself walking into a small cafe across from Easton Tower, one of those cozy places with mismatched chairs and handwritten menus. He ordered coffee and sat by the window, watching people rush past with umbrellas and briefcases. He didn't expect to see her. But a few minutes later, Lila walked in wearing a gray coat and low boots, her hair pulled into a loose braid. She glanced around the cafe, then paused when she saw him. "I didn't plan this," she said, walking over. "I swear." He looked up, startled. "You come here often?" "Every Thursday. The owner's an old friend. He makes the best lemon scones in the city." He gestured to the seat across from him.
"Seat."
She did, folding her hands on the table. "Did you open it?" He nodded.
"Yeah."
"And? I don't know yet." She tilted her head. "Tell me what's holding you back." He looked out the window. "I've been surviving for so long, I don't know what it looks like to build something again. Especially something that depends on me showing up and not falling apart." "Do you think that's what I see when I look at you?" she asked. "Someone who's falling apart?" "No," he said quietly. "I think you see someone you want to believe in. But I don't know if I can live up to that." She leaned forward. "You think I hand out those letters to everyone I meet in a cereal aisle?" He laughed, the tension breaking slightly. "That was a weird day." "It was a good day," she said. "I got pancakes out of it." He smiled, then sobered. "I'm not used to people like you believing in people like me." "Then maybe it's time that changed," she said. "Look, I didn't write that letter because I felt sorry for you. I saw how you talked to your son, how you listened, how you made a list of childcare workers with CPR certifications instead of just pulling random names from the internet. That's not survival, Derek. That's care. That's intention." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "If I do this, if I take this step, it's not just a job that changes. Everything does." "I know," she said. "And you're okay with that?" "I'm here, aren't I?" He looked at her, then reached across the table and gently took her hand. "I'm not just scared of failing. I'm scared of needing someone again, of letting them in and not knowing what comes next." She didn't flinch. "Then let's figure it out together." He squeezed her fingers once. "Okay." Later that weekend, Lila stood in the middle of Derek's living room, holding a stack of coloring books and a half-assembled train set. Dylan was organizing crayons by color, and Derek was trying to fix the loose leg on the coffee table. Lila turned to him. "This place is charm." He gave a dry laugh. "It has crumbling drywall and a sink that whistles every time you use the hot water." "I meant what I said." "I know," he said. "I just never imagined you standing here, On this rug that's seen better decades, playing with my kid. She raised an eyebrow. What did you imagine? I don't know, he said. You always looked like someone who belonged in rooms with crystal chandeliers and people who wear cufflinks. I do wear cufflinks, she said. But I also really like this train set. He crawled over, nudging a plastic tunnel into place. You always this good with kids? Only one way to find out, she said, then turned to Dylan. Hey, what do you think of the news station? Dylan examined it carefully. Needs a dragon.
Noted, she said.
Derek watched them for a moment, then said, You know, I've never brought anyone here. She didn't look up. Why not? Because this isn't the kind of place you invite someone into when you're trying to pretend you've got it all together. She finally looked at him. Then it's a good thing I already know you don't. And I still want to be here. He leaned back, resting on his hands. You're dangerous, you know that? Dangerous how? You make me believe things could be better. That I could want more than just making it through the day. She reached across the train tracks and touched his cheek. Then let's want more. He closed his eyes just for a second, then leaned into her touch. Outside, the wind picked up. But inside, for the first time in a long while, things felt still. And maybe, just maybe, they were building something real. The gala was unlike anything Derek had ever experienced, and that was saying something, considering his new role at Easton Enterprises had already taken him into boardrooms and benefit dinners he never imagined setting foot in. But tonight, the ballroom glittered under cascading chandeliers, the air thick with perfume, champagne, and polished ambition. It was a benefit for the Easton Foundation, a night Lila had told him she wanted to make personal this year. He stood near the corner of the room in a tailored navy suit Lila's assistant had helped him pick out, watching her from across the floor. She moved with effortless grace, greeting donors, exchanging quiet words with city officials, and making every person she spoke to feel like the only one in the room. She was radiant in a sleek silver gown, her hair pinned back with a single sapphire clip. Dylan was home with Kayla, happily armed with pizza, a new robot game, and a promise that his dad would bring him a cookie from the dessert table. Derek had been to plenty of events in the last few months, but tonight felt different. Not just because of the tuxedos and the string quartet, but because of what was about to happen. Lila had asked him to meet her at the edge of the stage just before the keynote speech. She hadn't told him why. She hadn't needed to. He was starting to understand her patterns, the quiet way she planned things, the calm confidence that preceded something important. When she finally stepped down from the stage stairs and found him, her eyes softened. You clean up well, she said, tucking her arm easily through his. You say that like it's a surprise. I've seen you wrestle a juice box out of a car seat. Forgive my skepticism. He grinned, nervous energy buzzing in his chest. So, what's this about? She glanced toward the stage. You'll see in a minute. Lila. Trust me. She walked him to the side of the ballroom, where the event coordinator handed her a small microphone. She thanked him quietly, then turned back to Derek. I want you to stand nearby. Just listen. Before he could ask anything else, she stepped up to the podium. The room dimmed and quieted. Conversation slowed. The spotlights shifted. Good evening, she began, her voice steady, clear. Thank you all for being here tonight to support a cause that is very close to my heart. Derek's hands curled into fists behind his back. For years, the Easton Foundation has focused on education initiatives, women in tech, and sustainability projects. But tonight, I want to talk about something more personal. Something that redefined the way I see impact. She paused, letting the silence settle. 3 months ago, I met someone in the most ordinary, unremarkable way. A grocery store aisle, a cereal box debate, a child with an unshakable belief in green milk. Laughter rippled through the audience. I met a man who didn't know who I was, who didn't ask for anything, who offered me help without hesitation because that's just who he is. That man reminded me that real strength doesn't always look like boardrooms or balance sheets. Sometimes, it's a father waking up at 5 to make pancakes and still getting his kid to school with a smile. Derek's throat tightened. So tonight, I'm proud to announce a new initiative. One that supports single parents finding their way through difficult seasons. We're launching a citywide grant program in partnership with local schools and childcare networks to provide financial support, mentorship, and flexible employment opportunities. We're calling it the Monroe Impact Fund, in honor of the person who inspired it. Derek froze, the blood rushing to his ears. Lila looked at him, her eyes locked on his. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary people are the ones quietly holding everything together. The room erupted in applause. Flashes clicked from the press section. But all Derek could focus on was her. She stepped down, walked straight to him, and took his hand. "You named it after me," he said, voice low. "I wanted you to see what you've done," she said. "What you've helped me become." "I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." But he shook his head.
No. Ido.
He turned to face her fully. "You changed everything. You made me believe I could want something more than just getting through the day. You saw me when I didn't even know how to be seen. And you didn't fix me, you just stood next to me while I figured it out." Silence fell around them again, the kind that happens when something real is happening in a room full of people. "I love you," he said, voice sure and steady. "I love you, Lila Easton. Not because of this," he gestured around them, "but because somehow in all of this, you're still the woman who knelt down to talk to my son without making him feel small." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped closer, her eyes shimmering. "I've spent years building something I thought would keep me safe. A company.
A name.
A reputation. But you and Dylan," her voice faltered for the first time, "you gave me something I can't build. Something I never expected." "Say it," he whispered. "I love you." He kissed her, right there in the middle of the ballroom, with cameras flashing and strangers watching, and none of it mattered. Because for once, everything was simple. Days later, the three of them stood in a sun-drenched backyard just outside the city. Dylan was chasing a plastic airplane through the grass while Derek flipped pancakes on a griddle Lila had jokingly gifted him with a gold ribbon. The house behind them was theirs. Not hers. Not his. Theirs. It wasn't massive. It didn't have marble floors or a skyline view. But it had a second bedroom with superhero sheets and a kitchen big enough for pancake wars. Lila leaned against the porch railing, coffee in hand, watching Derek and Dylan duel with spatulas. He looked up, smiling. "You know, this is what I wanted. Not all the noise. Just this." She stepped down and wrapped her arms around his waist. "Me too." Dylan ran up, waving his airplane. "Dad, can we fly to space today?" Derek crouched. "Only if Mom packs snacks." Lila blinked. "Mom?" He froze, eyes darting to her. "I didn't mean," but she was already kneeling beside Dylan, smiling through sudden tears. "I'd love to pack the snacks." And just like that, it was real. Not because they had money, not because they had a house, but because they had each other. And that was everything. A year later, the scent of lavender drifted through the open windows of the stone cottage nestled in the hills outside Napa Valley. The late afternoon sun painted long golden streaks across the hardwood floors as Dylan darted across the living room, a toy rocket in one hand and a juice box in the other. His laugh echoed through the hallway before he skidded to a halt at the doorway to what he now proudly called their reading room. "Lila, Dad said I can pick any book tonight, even the big ones." Lila turned from the shelves, barefoot in a linen dress, her hair swept up in a loose twist. "Even the big ones? That sounds serious." "He said I'm old enough now," Dylan said, puffing out his chest. "I'm 7.5. She crouched beside him, brushing his hair back. "That's practically ancient. Go grab the one with the dragon ship. It's your favorite. He nodded and ran off again, leaving her with a quiet smile as she stood and walked down the hall toward the kitchen. Derek was there, sleeves rolled up, focused on chopping fresh basil. The kitchen was warm with a scent of garlic and tomatoes, the window open to let in the breeze. He glanced over his shoulder when he heard her footsteps. "Hey," he said, wiping his hands. "Did he find the book?" "He's probably trying to talk to the dragon through the pages again." Derek chuckled, then pulled her in by the waist, pressing a kiss to her temple. "You okay?" She nodded. "Better than okay." Outside, string lights flickered to life over the stone patio where a long table had been set for dinner. A few of their closest friends were arriving soon, colleagues from the foundation board, Kayla with her fiancé, and even Tessa, who now worked remotely from Paris, but insisted on flying in for any celebration involving Dylan. Tonight wasn't just a housewarming. Tonight was a wedding. Not the kind with 100 guests and ice sculptures. Nothing about this was about spectacle. It was about them. It was about a father who had once believed his life had already been written, and a woman who had spent her life behind glass walls of success, never expecting love to shatter through them. They'd chosen to be married in their backyard, beneath the fig tree Dylan had claimed as his pirate outpost. Lila had walked barefoot down the makeshift aisle, while Dylan tossed petals from a wooden pail. Derek's vows had been simple and honest, spoken through a voice thick with emotion. Hers had been whispered with a hand pressed over his heart. Now, as the sun dipped behind the hills and the guests raised glasses of wine, Derek stood beside her, his fingers laced with hers as Dylan climbed into a chair to make a toast of his own. "I just want to say," Dylan announced, "that I'm glad Lila's my mom now. And also, she makes the best pancakes when Dad's not looking." Lila laughed, brushing at her eyes, and Derek pulled her closer. Later, when the last plate had been cleared and the music had quieted, they sat together on the porch steps, shoes kicked off, watching Dylan chase fireflies barefoot in the grass. "Do you remember the first time I met you?" Lila asked softly. "I remember your coat had a button missing. You kept fiddling with it while you talked to me. You noticed that?" "I noticed everything about you that day. You were the only person who looked at me like I was more than the bags under my eyes." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "I think I knew, even then." He tilted his head to kiss the top of hers. "I didn't know what to do with someone like you. You felt like a story I wasn't allowed to be part of." "You are the story," she whispered. They fell quiet as Dylan caught a firefly in cupped palms, his eyes wide with wonder. "I never thought I'd have this," Derek said after a while. "A home. A family. You." "I never thought I'd want this," she admitted. "Until you." He turned to her, serious now. "Are you happy?" She looked at the boy running through their yard, at the stars beginning to prick the sky, at the man beside her who had once only lived in survival and now lived in purpose. "Yes," she said. "Completely." Weeks later, they stood on a balcony overlooking the Amalfi Coast, the ocean a glittering sheet of sapphire below. It had been a gift from Lila, a honeymoon they hadn't planned, but she'd orchestrated down to the last detail. Derek had insisted she didn't have to, and she'd simply answered, "I didn't do it because I had to. I did it because I wanted to see you see this." They spent mornings wandering open-air markets, afternoons sipping espresso by the sea, and nights tangled in sun-warmed sheets, whispering dreams they hadn't dared speak before. One evening, as they watched the sunset turn the sky to fire, Derek wrapped his arms around her from behind. "You know," he said, "I used to think love was supposed to be hard, like something you had to fight to keep alive. And now I know it's just supposed to be real, and honest, and built every day." She turned in his arms, her fingers brushing his jaw. "I love the life we've built." "We're not done building yet," he said. "No," she said, her voice catching. "We're just getting started." Months passed. Dylan started a new school. Lila stepped back from the day-to-day at Easton Enterprises to focus on the foundation, and Derek's work with the Monroe Fund expanded into 3 new cities. Their house became a home filled with storybooks, mismatched mugs, and impromptu dance parties in the kitchen. One evening, as the 3 of them lay sprawled on the couch, Dylan nestled between them with a comic book. Lila whispered, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't turned down aisle 7 that day?" Derek kissed her forehead and pulled her closer.
No.
"Because I think wherever you turned, I would have found you."
And she believed him.
Because some loves were destined, not because they were perfect, but because they were chosen. Every single day,